Today's video is sponsored by Forever Pick, exotic wood guitar picks. Handmade one at a time in Chicago, Illinois, you can choose from a selection of exotic woods that will actually improve your guitar's tone. Take advantage of an exclusive 25% off coupon when you buy the full 6-pack at the link in the description. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel, and I sure appreciate it.
Hey y'all, it's Shit Post Friday.
Hello everybody, Brad the Guitologist here, and it's time for Shit Post Friday. Alright, this Shit Post Friday, I've kind of vowed to myself that I wasn't going to do quite so much editing, because the editing just takes for freaking ever, and it'd be a lot easier if I can just make bigger clips and not have to worry about it. But the first thing I wanted to talk about this week is the takedown of a website that I've used before to repair pedals. If you guys recall, maybe about a year and a half ago, something like that, I repaired an Ibanez pedal, and I referred to a website called tonehome.de, and .de is registered in Germany, and they have taken their website down because they claim over the European General Data Protection Regulation. They say that they're not in a position to ensure that they are in full compliance with this new EU regulation, and therefore they've just taken their website down to prevent any kind of liability issues until such time as they might be able to be fully accredited. So as we could see already, this GDPR legislation that many feared was going to have a chilling effect on the internet in the EU is already having such a chilling effect, because people like this person who run tonehome.de have chosen to take their website down completely as opposed to risk any kind of liability, which is just, to me, absolute madness. You know, I'd like to know what you think about this. I had heard a lot of apocryphal things coming out of, certain analysis videos talking about this new legislation and how it was going to criminalize memes and things like this. You know, you wouldn't be able to say a lot of the things that you've been saying on the internet. A lot of people have said it's very draconian, very Orwellian, and I'm just curious, what do you think? What do you think about this legislation? What do you know about this legislation? Do you know anything more than I do? Because frankly, I don't know a whole lot. I don't live in the EU, so I haven't kept up with it. But it was interesting to me that someone pointed this out the other day. They commented on that Ibanez video. They said, hey, I tried to go to tonehome.de and their website's down. And if you go to their website, this is all you see. You see just a blank page. It redirects to /offline, and it says, sorry, we're in an indefinite hiatus thanks to uncertainties brought to you by GDPR. I reached out to tonehome.de on Facebook. They have a Facebook account also. I reached out to them on there for a comment, and they say, hi, I took it down because I didn't have the time to make it meet the requirements of the European General Data Protection Regulation, and I didn't want to run the risk of getting sued. Since this is my hobby and doesn't bring any profit, I cannot deal with things like GDPR. Maybe the site will be back next year. Cheers. So yeah, cheers to you too. I'm sorry I didn't really catch your name in our correspondence, but hopefully you can bring that site back. That was an absolutely magnificent website. Lots of information was on there. It had archived schematics for and information on a lot of different Ibanez pedals, I know for a fact, and maybe some other pedals lines as well. But they had an absolutely fantastic archive there, and it's a real shame. It's a real strike to the guitar community that such websites are being taken down in the EU, and hopefully that gets remedied post-haste. Next up in the news, many of you probably already know Sears, the great American stalwarts of a company, has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy following Gibson, I suppose, into Chapter 11 bankruptcy earlier this year. But the outlook might not be quite so rosy for Sears, because they are facing some very stiff competition in their realm. As you guys probably know, Amazon.com has become the big boy on the block, and there's also some Asian websites that kind of model after Amazon.com. Banggood I've mentioned on here being one of them, and there's also Alibaba. So, you know, a lot of retail is being moved online. A lot more people are ordering their stuff online, including guitars. And that's another thing that's hurting Guitar Center in a lot of ways, is that, you know, less people are going into the brick and mortar stores. But Sears is particularly, you know, kind of saddening, and brings back a twinge of nostalgia for me, because, you know, I know for a fact how much they meant to the early blues rock, country music development in the United States in particular. Their catalogs were ubiquitous. If you are a boy of a certain age or a man of a certain age living in the United States, you will definitely remember the Sears catalog. You will probably particularly remember the lingerie section of the Sears catalog, which we all, I'm sure, have quite an affinity to still to this day. I think my first official arousal was to the Sears catalog when I was little. But anyway, beyond that, you know, they sold guitars and other music related equipment to the masses. They brought it to rural areas that normally would not have had any service, would not have had anything like a local store, music store, where they could just walk in and see a bunch of guitars or keyboards or what have you. So, you know, it was a good thing that Sears did for the early music community in this country from, you know, the early 1900s, particularly up through the war era, both wars, in fact, and you know, on into the late 60s. They were really a force to be reckoned with. Into the 70s still, they were selling a lot of stuff, and you know, they had some big competitors like Montgomery Ward, who have already, I think, gone completely out of business, if I'm not mistaken. Montgomery Ward, they slimmed way back for a long, long time, and then I think they just within the past decade or so, I think, if I'm remembering this correctly, I think they're gone now. But yeah, just a sad day to see that Sears has sunk so low. And it's a real irony as well, because, you know, they started out their business as a shipper. And as a, you know, they would send out their catalogs, so they would ship things to people in rural areas, and it's just ironic that their competitor now, Amazon, is doing this thing that they were doing 100 years ago. So, you know, if they come out of Chapter 11, I would like to see them completely retool their retail space, maybe slim down the retail portion of the space, have a few things in there that are their top sellers, and perhaps where you can go in and pick up your orders also if you'd rather get them in person. But they should turn those retail spaces, if they come out of bankruptcy, that is, still owning some of that property, they really need to retool that and make it into warehouse space, maybe keep a few regional hubs in certain areas of the country, and just kind of slim down and focus on those few hubs, make them into shipping centers, and go back online and try to compete with Amazon. Maybe get back into the catalog business, because, you know, that's one thing about Amazon. You can't, I mean, you can sit on the shitter with your phone, but, you know, there's also something to be said for having a catalog there, the physical thing. So I don't know what the right answer is for Sears, but I do know if they do have any kind of future coming out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy, it's gonna have to feature a stronger presence online, and hopefully they can get that together, because, like I said, you know, just what they meant to the early music community, and what they've meant to America in general as one of the great suppliers of goods has been huge. There's a good article on this about Sears if you want to read it, and what they have meant to music development in the United States, particularly in areas like the South and rural areas where you know, no retailers could really reach. A very interesting article, and thank you to the person who sent me the link to this article. I forget your name at the moment, but you know who you are. Thank you. Okay, and finally in the news, I wanted to share with you the email that I recently got from Steel Panther. I will try to read this all to you. We've had lots of questions over the past weeks, so this email will be a recap. First things first, by the end of the day today, 575 pedals will have been shipped out. So that's good news. More importantly, we are on track to have the majority of the pedals on their way to you by the end of the month. So that's good too. The majority, I guess, would mean more than half. A recap of timing. For those of you who weren't on the first list for the first email, as we stated in that email, this process will take weeks, which we already knew. For those of you who ordered after September 24th, the process will take 8 to 12 weeks, as is noted on the product page. I think I ordered before that. So with that out of the way, let's discuss why. And this is very interesting. This will kind of give you an insight into what it takes to get a pedal such as this produced rapidly and turned around rapidly so that you can capitalize on a moment like they have managed to do here. And you're going to be shocked at how many of these things that they sold too. They're going to tell us here. It reads, though it's not typical or customary to give this much of a look into a band's business, we truly appreciate each and every one of you and want you to be comfortable. Together, we are making heavy metal history. You all know the story of how we got here. Steel Panther is not a pedal builder, nor did the band have any intention of being one prior to this summer. When the opportunity to give life to this censored product was presented, we took it very seriously. We were approached by a top-tier boutique pedal company and had quite a few conversations about whether or not anyone would even buy this product from the band. We did the math and felt it would be a valuable thing to do, even if there wasn't a lot of profit. Hand building a custom pedal in low quantities is expensive. We expected to sell 100, maybe 200 if it really took off. Once we decided to make this pedal, we worked with the boutique company to develop a quality piece that would hold value aside from the novelty of the name. This is how Steel Panther approaches everything that we do. The integrity of Steel Panther. Next, we began discussing the actual production with a top-tier factory. As I'm sure you can imagine, there are not many factories that build quality musical equipment in the USA. The ones that do exist handle manufacturing for many, many companies. Companies who have placed orders months in advance. I'm sure that's true. Companies who are placing orders in the multiple thousands of units to supply the coming holiday sales period. I'm sure that's also true. We asked the factory if they could squeeze in 100 or 200 pedals by the end of September as a favor to us. They felt that although their production lines were already booked, they could have an employee make a few on the side over the course of time and have them ready in time. We thanked them, and once Satchel had been able to play and approve the prototype in person, we launched the pre-order. Then we sold 400 by the end of the first weekend. So the end of the first weekend after this news all broke and they said, well, we're selling this pedal, they sold 400 off the bat like that. And that's $200 a pop. So keep up with the math here. After we picked our jaws off the floor, we started discussing the logistics and what this actually meant. How many were we actually going to sell? I'm sure this was a big oh shit moment. We gave our word that we would make as many as were ordered by October the 1st, and it would be unfair to do anything less. So now we had to figure out how to make that happen. And the pedals kept selling. We had discussions with our team about the parts needed and timing. We discussed moving production to China. We decided against that because not only had we promised a piece made in the US, the timeline may not actually be sped up and quality control would be far harder. Understandably, the factory couldn't promise any kind of timeline until we told them how many we were actually ordering. So they're in a bit of a pickle there. There have been studies done on musical online pre-orders, and from those and my own experience with many deluxe product pre-orders, we did our best to predict. We said surely 1,000 would be the absolute most we could sell. When we crossed 1,000, we did more math, and I just wasn't comfortable predicting any more than 1,800. Sticks told me in late September that if we passed 2,000, he would punch me in the face.
I said, come down here and see what happens if you try and hit me.
We've since been discussing exactly how far away from my face would still be considered a punch, but not hurt that bad.
We just washed the hair.
And this brought another issue. When we passed 2,000, we learned that we had now laid claim to every single circuit board for this size pedal currently in the USA. So they bought out all of the suppliers for this particular size board. We had to place an express order from China and hope we ordered enough because it would take weeks for them to arrive. This is why orders after September 24th have a longer wait. And they're talking now about just the boards themselves. I don't think that's a populated board. That's just the base board. And we haven't even discussed how to ship these. The factory is not in the same state as Steel Panther's store's web warehouse. The factory is being unbelievably kind and has been working with us to split shipments and get them out as fast as possible. I won't even go into the other details and insane things we've had to do to get this right and out as fast as possible. The above is just the cliff notes. The point is that we're getting it done thanks to the incredible factory and awesome team. Now that you know the story, we ask for your patience as our team is working very hard to get you a high quality product as quickly as possible. If you have further questions, I will answer some of the more pertinent ones in next week's mailing. Here are some that I will get out of the way. Who are our partners? Out of respect for them, we will not be naming who they are, and I can understand that for sure. Steel Panther is a lightning rod for controversy, and not all of those who support and work with the band want to open themselves to the possibility of that controversy falling on them. Isn't this a shame? How in the first world, supposedly free country, that we are having to have such fears, that we can't really speak our mind in a way, and this is ironic too, because there was a time, it seems not that long ago, that Playboy magazine, for instance, would have been considered racy, like way out there, something that you wanted to avoid, something that no self-respecting citizen would be caught dead with having a Playboy magazine. And then it kind of grew and grew and grew, and it was kind of championed by people who were liberty-minded and on the left. Anybody who was for liberation of the sexes would have been for such a thing, because it was sexual liberation, and that was the goal at the time. Let's liberate people's sexuality and get it out there, and stop being so prudish about everything. And then when that happened, then the feminism movement came along and said, okay, well, it's not about liberation of the sexes. Now it's about us telling other women who are sexually liberated that they're sluts for being that way, and the men who like them are exploitative to them, So it's just ironic. It's strange how history works, how the human mind works, how tribe mentality works. How arguments containing histrionics are successful in convincing people that they are correct, and having a chilling effect, such as this, like where people don't even want to say that they're associated with something, It's kind of sad. But anyway, I digress.
What the fuck was he talking about?
How many pedals were ordered? 2,500 pedals they sold. 2,500 pedals. And if we do the quick math, that means, and they were about $200 per pedal. So let's see how much revenue they raised. 200 times 2,500, and you can, I'm sure, already do the math in your head, but $500,000 in revenue they have raised because a couple of girls got upset and had a company pull a tone print that everybody in their right mind said was a ridiculous thing to do. And, being the capitalists they are, good job, Steel Panther. They knocked it out of the park, I would say. Okay, that is all for Shitpost Friday. I want to thank everybody who has sent me questions, hoping to get on a Ask an Amp Tech segment. I know it's been a couple weeks since I've made one of those, and sorry for that. It's just been one of those things. It's hard to kind of keep up with all of that and get it straight in my various sources of messaging. I've got like 2 or 3 different places where people send me stuff, and I want to thank you guys for asking. Continue to ask those questions. I'll try to get to hopefully some of those next week. I also want to dedicate this week's Shitpost Friday to my late puppy dog Buddy, who we had to put down today. The family's a bit upset by it, but I'm sure Buddy's gone on to a better place. I will say, when I was growing up, I grew up on a farm, as many of you already know, and my dad and my papa, would always put down animals that were lame, and they try to do it as humanely as possible. But seeing that as a little kid, I saw the brutality of it. And today, although I kind of balked at the the cost of euthanizing an animal, because I'm really not used to that sort of thing, having to pay to have somebody euthanize an animal. I was just taken aback by how easy he went, and how, you know, how unfair it is that human beings cannot have the same dignity. If we agree to it, and it's something that, you know, in our right minds we want to do, then I believe we should have the ability to do that, and that no government has the right to stand in our way. So this one's for you, buddy. Thanks, you guys, and we'll see y'all later.